I'd just like to say before this video begins, I'm sorry if I ruin your childhood. That is not my intention.
Hey guys, so it's time for another creepy video, and for tonight's creepy video, I'm going to be talking about some dark Disney shit, pretty much. These are going to be, like, some Disney stories that started out very dark and disturbing, and I want to say, first of all, like, as a disclaimer, that I'm in no way putting down Disney. I am a huge Disney fan. I'm pretty sure that we all are. I don't see how you couldn't be. So I'm not like putting down Disney or any of these movies in any way. I love all of these movies. I think that they're great. So I don't want you guys to think that I'm trying to put it down or anything like that. I just thought that it was really interesting how something that started off so dark and demented, like some of these stories did, ended up becoming like a movie that was kid friendly. So I thought that I would talk about it because you guys know that I'm into all this dark, creepy shit. So yeah, and by the way, I'm filming outside today because I don't know, I just really wanted to film outside, and there are gnats like flying all in front of my lens. So I'm sorry if you guys can see that. But I like to sometimes film in front of my mom's creepy angel statue over here. Whenever I get the chance, just because I really like the way that it looks. I love the look of these statues after a while, so yeah, let's get started. So the first story that I'm going to be talking about is A Little Mermaid, which happens to be one of my favorite Disney movies of all time. So in the original Little Mermaid, the prince ends up choosing another girl, which then makes the Little Mermaid push herself over into the ocean, where she then turns into sea foam and disappears into the water. That to me was kind of disturbing. It's probably not disturbing as like some of the other stories that I've got, but it is still pretty disturbing. So number 2 on my list is Cinderella, and I'm sure that you guys have heard some dark stuff about Cinderella, because this has been going on for a long time. It's actually what made me want to make a video of. In the original Cinderella, when neither of her stepsisters could fit their feet into her slippers, one of the stepsisters decided to cut off her toe, and then the other cut off her heel, and this was to fool the prince into thinking that Cinderella was not the girl that he was looking for, because her foot would no longer fit into the slipper after they had cut her toe and her heel off. So then later on into the story, Cinderella has these magic birds, which she makes peck out her stepsister's eyeballs. She makes a lid fall on her stepmother's neck, which causes it to break it and ends up killing her. So Cinderella was probably like one of the most disturbing ones that I found. Lion King. So Disney claimed that they based the story off of William Shakespeare's Hamlet, in which every character ends up dying in. So that in itself is pretty disturbing. So Hamlet, being the character that Simba was based on, ends up getting stabbed to death with a poisoned blade. So number 4 was Aladdin. And in the first story of Aladdin, everything seemed normal, like there was nothing out of the ordinary, nothing disturbing, everything was fine. In the second story, however, Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves, it has a lot more dark, disturbing stuff going on there. So in this story, the character Cassim, I think I'm saying that right, which is Aladdin's father, is killed and dismembered. His body parts are then stacked around this place called the Treasure Cave, and this is to be a warning to other travelers passing nearby. Later, his body is then stitched back together by a tailor to make his family believe that he died of natural causes. Okay, so the next story that I'm going to be talking about is Sleeping Beauty. And this is another one like Cinderella that was pretty disturbing to me. So, in the original Sleeping Beauty, her prince was unable to wake her up from her sleep, and her sleep was caused by a splinter in her finger, which I don't know how, like, you could, not wake up from that, but apparently that can make you sleep for a really long period of time. And so she was in a deep sleep because of the splinter that was in her finger, and so her prince chose to rape her and then leave her there. So then he left her after he raped her. her being completely unaware of what just happened because she was sleeping. So Sleeping Beauty, being still unconscious, ends up becoming pregnant with twins. One of the twins sucks on her finger, drawing out the splinter, and that made her wake up, and she's just completely clueless as to who these kids are and where they came from. So that to me is just really sad. And the next one is Hercules. And in this one, I don't really know how to pronounce some of these names. I've never seen Hercules, and I know a lot of people are going to be like, what? You've never seen Hercules? No, I've never seen Hercules. So, if I'm pronouncing any of these names wrong, I apologize. So, the movie Hercules is based off of Greek myths, which are already pretty messed up. So, in the original Hercules story, Zeus tricks Hercules' mother to have sex with him. Then, as a child, Hercules kills his music tutor with a lyre. Later, he marries Megara, and then goes insane and just slaughters all of their children. He marries 3 more times after that and has countless male lovers. The next story is The Fox and the Hound. So, in the original novel, Todd collapses from exhaustion during a hunt and dies. Copper's alcoholic owner decides to go to a retirement home, but before he leaves, he ends up shooting Copper with a shotgun, and he dies. So that to me was like very sad. Like, that ruined that. I mean, it didn't ruin it because I still love the movie. The movie is actually quite different, but the story is just very sad to me, and I'm glad that the actual movie did not go that way. So the next story was Pocahontas. So Pocahontas was a real-life girl, and she lived a pretty sad life. She actually hated John Smith, who pretty much lied about everything that happened between them. She was also kidnapped and held hostage for a year and renamed Rebecca. She was also paraded around as a propaganda tool and then died at the age of 21. And then her grave was also destroyed. So that poor girl lived a pretty hard life. And that wasn't like a storybook, like that was an actual thing that happened at one point, and Disney decided to base a movie off of it. So that one to me is more like sad than anything else. Alice in Wonderland. So Lewis Carroll wrote Alice in Wonderland. And I'm just going to read this one because I have no idea what this is talking about really. So Lewis Carroll wrote Alice in Wonderland on new controversial mathematic concepts like imaginary numbers. Carroll was pretty conservative and old school and thought you'd have to be on drugs to believe in these concepts.
I guess that means that Alice was on drugs whenever she imagined all this stuff.
So the next one was Peter Pan. This one has also been going around on the web for a long time now, so I'm sure you guys have heard a little bit of the dark stuff that involved Peter Pan. So in the original Peter Pan story, he ends up killing all the Lost Boys because they end up growing old, which is not acceptable. So he decides to kill them all off when they started growing up, which was against the rules. The next one was The Princess and the Frog. The frog's curse is broken when the princess hurls him against a wall in one version of the story. In some versions, the frog's head is chopped off and his skin is burned, which to me, I don't see how that would, like reverse the spell and turn him into a human again, but whatever. So then the next and the last story is Snow White. Already Snow White has some pretty disturbing stuff going on in it for a kid's movie. The evil queen has the huntsman go out and try to find Snow White to kill her. The queen tried several times to kill Snow White after the huntsman's attempt at killing her failed. The first time, she went to the cottage where Snow White was, and she was dressed as an old woman, as we all know in the movie. She was dressed as a woman, and she tried to persuade her into buying these corsets that she had. So she makes Snow White try on this corset, and she ends up lacing it up on the back. Well, she laces it up too tight, cuts off Snow White's circulation, and she thinks that she cuts off her oxygen, and so she leaves her there to die. Thinking that she's dead, she goes off on her merry way, and then she goes back to her mirror, and her mirror tells her once again the fairest one of them all is Snow White. So she decides to come back again. This time she had a poisonous comb, and she persuaded Snow White to buy this comb, comb her hair with it, and it would kill her. So once again, you know, she thought that she had killed her, and she went on her merry way. She went back to her mirror, and then her mirror said the same thing. Snow White is the fairest of them all. It was only at her last attempt to Snow White did something actually happen. She brought her poisonous apple, which we all know about in the movie Snow White. You know, that's how she kind of falls into the slumber, is because she took a bite of this poisonous apple that this old lady, the evil queen, brought to her. So in the third attempt, you know, she brings this apple and she persuades her to eat it. So Snow White eats the apple, and it puts her into a deep slumber. So then the dwarfs ended up making a glass coffin for her, when a prince comes along and just finds Snow White absolutely beautiful. Instead of the prince kissing her to wake her up again, the prince and the dwarfs decide to carry her coffin somewhere else, and they tripped over a stump, you know, shaking the apple out of Snow White's throat and her waking up. So Snow White ends up marrying the prince, and the queen ended up coming to her wedding. And she was forced to wear red-hot iron shoes and dance until she could not dance anymore. But instead of dancing, she just ended up falling over and dying right there. So that was it for my dark and disturbing Disney backstories. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a big old thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you have not already, and become a morbid maniac. Also, leave me a comment and let me know what you think of all of these dark, disturbing Disney stories. I find them very disturbing, but it doesn't change the way that I see Disney. I still love Disney so much, and I'm still a huge fan. Like I said, I found it really interesting, and I thought it would be a great video. I hope no one takes offense. There are also several other stories, like storybook kind of stories that were for little kids that started off dark, that I might make another video on in the future, so let me know if you would like to see that. If there is anything that I left out, or any other stories that you might know of that I might not, feel free to leave me a comment and let me know. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video.
I found them really dark and disturbing, so yeah, those were all of the really... I can't even see. Where is it? Oh, it's red. It's really small. It's red. Hurry up, airplane. You're taking forever. Oh my god. Airplane. Okay, you know, instead of kissing her to wake her up, well, I think if you still kiss her and wake her up, I don't know. So, yeah. Hang on. I want to make sure that there's no airplane. Okay. And every girl wants to be like Cinderella. I happen to not be one of those girls, but every girl wants to be like Cinderella, and they don't even know about the background to Cinderella. You know, the evil queen has the huntsman. After the huntsman's offense, I can't talk.